Have you ever heard the whispers of the old markets? The ones that come alive under the glow of a full moon. Tonight, I'm going to take you to one such place. A small African village, nestled between golden hills and ancient, whispering trees. This wasn't just any market. It was a place of magic and mystery, a place where legends were born. It was said that if you found yourself there when the moon was round and bright, you might witness things beyond your wildest imagination. People would gather to sell their wares, to bargain, and to trade stories. But one fateful night, something else slithered among the bustling crowds. Something ancient and powerful, drawn by the scent of a dark human heart. In the very heart of this vibrant marketplace, a man named Kofi ran his stall. But Kofi wasn't known for his fine goods or his friendly smile. No, Kofi was known for his greed. His heart was as hard as the stones in the riverbed, and his reputation for cheating was known throughout the village. He'd use fake weights to tip the scales in his favor, sell broken pottery as if it were flawless, and pass off spoiled food to unsuspecting families. And yet, despite his deceit, his pile of coins grew higher with each passing day. He was a rich man, but a poor soul. One evening, as the sun bled orange and purple across the sky, casting long shadows over the market, Kofi was packing up his stall. The usual chatter was fading, replaced by the chirping of crickets. Just as he was about to lock his coin box, he noticed an old woman standing silently beside his stall. She was frail. Her clothes were little more than rags, and she clutched a small, unassuming clay pot in her wrinkled hands. She looked at Kofi with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of 1,000 moons. "Good evening, my son," she said, her voice soft like the rustling of dry leaves. "Please, would you mind if I rested this pot here for just a moment? My old bones are weary from the journey." Kofi, ever impatient and caring for nothing but his profits, barely glanced at her. He grunted, "Do what you want, old woman, but don't get in the way of my customers." He didn't have any customers left, but his greed made him suspicious of everyone. The old woman simply smiled, a gentle, knowing smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She placed the pot carefully on the edge of his wooden table and leaned in, whispering a warning that sounded like the wind itself. "Be kind to what you do not understand," she said, and with that she turned and vanished into the thinning crowd, melting into the twilight as if she were never there at all. Kofi paid her no mind. An old woman and her pot were of no concern to him. He finished locking his chests, counting his earnings for the day with a smug grin. But as the last sliver of daylight disappeared and the full moon began its ascent, casting a silvery glow over the empty market, he noticed something odd. The little clay pot the woman had left behind was shimmering. A faint, ethereal light seemed to pulse from within it, soft and rhythmic, like a tiny captured star. Kofi stared, his usual gruff demeanor replaced by a flicker of curiosity. What could be inside? Gold. Jewels. His greedy mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps the old woman was a fool, leaving her treasure behind. He reached out a hesitant hand, then a confident one. This was his stole, after all. Whatever was left here was his for the taking. He wrapped his fingers around the smooth, cool clay and lifted the lid. The moment the seal was broken, a loud, sharp hiss echoed through the silent marketplace. So sudden and powerful, it made Kofi stumble backward. From the small opening of the pot, a creature began to emerge. It wasn't gold or jewels. It was a snake, but not just any snake. This was a massive, terrifying serpent, its scales as black as a starless night. It uncoiled itself from the tiny pot, growing larger and larger until it towered over Kofi, its head swaying ominously in the moonlight. Its eyes were not the eyes of an animal. They burned like two hot coals, filled with ancient intelligence and a chilling fury. The great snake fixed its burning gaze upon the terrified trader. A deep, echoing voice filled the air, seeming to come from all around him, a voice that vibrated in Kofi's very bones. "You have cheated many, Kofi," the voice boomed. "You have built your wealth on the tears of the poor and the hunger of the hungry. Tonight, your greed meets its end." Kofi, who had never known fear, was now paralyzed by it. All the arrogance and confidence drained from him, leaving a trembling, pathetic man in its place. He fell to his knees, his face pale in the moonlight. "Please," he stammered. his voice a pathetic squeak. "Please, forgive me. I didn't know. I didn't know." The snake's fiery eyes narrowed. "You knew," the voice rumbled, cold and unforgiving, with every false weight, with every rotten fruit you knew. But you did not care. Your heart was closed to all but the clink of coins. The serpent leaned closer, its massive head just inches from Kofi's face. He could feel the heat radiating from its eyes, and smell a scent like burnt earth and ozone. "Still," the voice continued, a hint of something other than anger in its tone, "I will give you one choice, one chance to mend the tapestry you have torn. Share your wealth. Return what you have stolen. Not just the coin, but the value. Give to those you have cheated. Feed the hungry you have ignored, and clothe the poor you have scorned. Do this, and you will never see me again." The snake paused, its presence filling the entire world. "But if you refuse, if one coin remains clutched in your greedy hand, it will return. I will visit you every night, in your stall and in your dreams, until you learn the lesson you have so long ignored." And with that final, chilling promise, the great black snake dissolved into smoke and shadow, slithering back into the clay pot with a final, soft hiss. The lid fell shut, and the pot was just a pot once more, dark and silent. The next morning, the sun rose over the village, and the market began to stir. People set up their stalls, their voices a low hum of morning greetings. But there was an air of anticipation. Everyone was waiting. Where was Kofi? His stall, usually the first to open, remained shuttered. Whispers spread through the crowd. Had something happened to the greedy trader? Then, just as the sun climbed higher, Kofi appeared. But he was not the same man. His face was pale, his hands trembled, and his eyes were wide with a fear that seemed to have settled deep into his soul. He looked. Chains. He walked to his stall and, without a word, began to open his chests. But he wasn't setting out goods for sale. He began to give things away. He handed the finest fabrics to the widows who could never afford them. He gave bags of fresh grain to the orphans who begged at the market's edge. He offered tools and pottery to the poor farmers he had once cheated. He gave it all away, his hands moving mechanically, his gaze distant. People were stunned into silence. They approached him, confused and suspicious. "Kofi, why are you doing this?" one woman asked, clutching a bolt of cloth she had only ever dreamed of. Kofi looked at her, his eyes haunted. He leaned in and said only 3 words, his voice a hoarse whisper. "The snake watches." From that day forward, Kofi was a different man. He became humble, fair, and even kind. The great black snake was never seen in the market again. Kofi's wealth was gone, but for the first time in his life, he could sleep through the night without the weight of his greed pressing down on him. The village changed to... The story of Kofi and the snake became a legend, a cautionary tale whispered from one generation to the next. And even now, they say that if you walk through the old market on the night of a full moon, and you stand very, very still by the spot where Kofi's stall once stood, you might just hear it, a soft, faint hiss on the window, timeless reminder that greed is a poison, and it always attracts its own punishment. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into folklore. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next tale. See you next time.